like this number. Don't you know he's listening? The 13. He's here.
You have entered the 13, a place where real stories about music, touring, and the beyond are told. Music does something to us. We all experience it in our own way. It can affect our senses, transport us through time, and release emotions. On this podcast, we will talk with people about the power of music and the beyond. What does the beyond mean? Let's find out together. Turn on your metronomes because this time is about to be tracked.
All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 13. I'm your host, Ryan 13, and today on the show we have Chester Moore. Me and Chester met each other a long time ago at a concert, and I've been following him ever since. He does some cool things with animals. Seen him do some stuff about Bigfoot. We actually know some of the same people. Like we both know Lyle.
Yep.
And hopefully he's coming on. He said he would. We'll see.
Lyle will be a wonderful guest, man.
For the audience who may or may not know who you are, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, there's a lot of things. It's like, Where do I start?
Right.
So my name is Chester Moore. If most people probably know me from my work as a wildlife journalist, writing about fishing, hunting, wildlife conservation, stuff like that. Done a lot of TV appearances, a lot of stuff on like Nat Geo Wild, Animal Planet, Discovery over the years. I was in a band called Freak 13 that had some underground success a little bit back there in the mid 2000s that I formed. And then I had a band called Draken after that. And I'm a lifelong metalhead, wrestling fan, Jesus follower, conservationist, and I don't know, man, some kind of weird Renaissance guy or something. I don't know, a lot of stuff going on.
No, and I love it, dude. And every time I follow you on Facebook or like see you post something on Facebook, it's something cool. You're doing a podcast now?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them.
Oh, cool.
Dark Outdoors is to shine light into the human dangers and wildlife dangers in the wild, everything from serial killer encounters to dangerous animal stuff. And that was based on me running into nut jobs in the woods around the country,
right?
And strange stuff. And then I have a radio program I've been doing for a long time. And one night on that show, I just didn't have a guest that night. I said, I'm just going to tell this story that happened to me. And then I said, anybody have anything like that happen to them? And I couldn't take all the calls that night. So,
wow.
And then I have Higher Calling Wildlife, which is podcast, which is more of my normal wildlife, conservation centric show I do.
Okay. Right on, man. Yeah. There's been a lot of times I've been walking around in the woods at night, because I think that's what us Texas boys do. It's just like, hey, it's dark, let's go outside. And one time we used to have like out in Katy, there's nothing there anymore. All the woods are gone,
Yeah,
but when I was growing up, there was woods and rice fields, and I always thought I saw stuff out in the woods at night. And one time, me and my buddy John Paul were out walking, moon's out, across the bayou, you hear all this rustling in the trees, and something pulled the trees back. It could have been a cow. We couldn't see what it was, but you saw the trees move go like this, and then this thing came out. He's like, "What is that, dude?" I remember his voice squeaked or whatever. And I was like, "That's the thing I've been talking about." We took off running the other way without even really being able to see what it was.
I hear you, but
there's a
lot of stuff that goes bump in the night out there.
There's a lot of stuff that goes bump in the night, man, whether it's Bigfoot or it's just a bum, you don't know. What's your craziest encounter out in the wild?
My craziest encounter out in the wild was it was probably 20 years ago. And I went to go, preface this, I was in California to do a cage dive with great white sharks.
Oh, cool.
Which I got to go do.
Yeah.
And I brought my dad with me. He was not going to go out in the cage, but he wanted to go see the redwoods and stuff like I did, because it was in Northern California. So we had booked a couple extra days and went up to Willow Creek and all that area up there. And I had just gotten Generation 3 night goggles. And
cool.
I was told there was a really good to hear night sounds, and that the Thule elk that lived up there were rutting. And if we go up on this particular mountain, that there was, might be a lot of activity. So we just kind of took our rental little SUV and set up there. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking down this valley about an hour after dark, and I see a light beam shining toward us. And I'm like, oh my, and I'd heard drug trafficking up there and stuff, but we have that in Texas too,
Right. Yep.
And I look and I'm like, hey, Dad, there's a light. He goes, I don't see a light. And I pull my goggles off. said, I don't see a light either. I put it back on. Now the light's slightly going that way, but I can see it clearly. And I pull it off. I said, Dad, there's the light. He goes, I don't see a light. And then I put them back on and it clicked. There's a kind of light called an infrared light that you have to have night vision to see. I said, and it clicked that someone down there is walking in the woods at night with night vision. And it clicked to the drug trade thing. And I went, oh boy, somebody knows we're here. So we just crammed our stuff that we just had little camping stuff and threw it in the back. And by the time I turned the key on, so like I'm on the top of this mountain and literally on top of this mountain it's like a logging road that goes on both sides of the mountain. I'm on the left side. About 3/4 of a mile ahead of me, lights turn on of a vehicle.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh boy, somebody just got signaled. So I get it, man. I'm going down this dirt road, logging trail, and this vehicle's going. And when I hit the road, I kid you not, I beat them on that road by about 5 seconds. And they hit that road. And I had never driven in the mountains at this point in my life.
Okay,
and brother, they were trying to run us off the mountain. They were trying to hit us and all kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my God. Now this had been back in Texas somewhere. Dad probably would have turned around with the AR and it would have been a different scenario. I'm in California. And so I would have had a SWAT team meet me if I brought the AR across the border. But, we hit this little road in the middle of nowhere. It's the highway, and they ended up going the other direction, and I went that way. But called the Forest Service, and obviously they said, oh, you're lucky you're alive. That was a lot of drug trade going on there. Yeah. I said, you got a deer crossing and a bear warning sign. How about, drug runner sign? That might have been helpful. But that was probably the one that shook me to the core the most.
I would imagine so, man. Like there was it's nighttime and you're seeing the infrared, but only when you've got the night vision on. Oh my God. Then like the realization of that must have been quite terrifying. And then trying to get out of there.
What's that?
I said, and then trying to get out of there and
the crazy part about never driven in the mountains, and we're not like in East Texas or even like up at Sam Rayburn, you're 15 minutes from some housing addition somewhere. Right. I am 45 minutes from the nearest like house. I mean, we're far out in the middle of nowhere. So we gunned it, got back to the little area we were going to stay at, and about an hour away actually. And like I said, it was pretty wild. And the interesting part was I met and this is kind of what led to me doing the podcast. I met a National Forest Service game warden at the National Wild Turkey Federation show a few years back. And I never met one that worked for the Forest Service. I met state ones, federal ones, but Forest Service. And I asked him what he said, mainly illegal timber harvest, but also poaching. And I think I just left, retired out of Humboldt County, California. I'm moving to a different location. I said, oh, I had this situation happen there. And he gets this stone, like dead look on his face. He goes, you're lucky to be alive.
Wow.
And then he goes, go watch Murder Mountain on Netflix.
Okay.
And I said, what? He goes, go watch Murder Mountain. It's a 6-part little series. He goes, you're probably going to want to cry when you watch this show. And I went and watched it. And it's about Humboldt County, California. I found out has more missing people than any place in America per capita.
Whoa.
And this one area they call Murder Mountain had all these deaths and disappearances. And I mapped out where Murder Mountain's supposed to be and where I was a whopping 3 or 4 miles from the actual Murder Mountain.
Pretty close though.
Yeah, I was close enough. I was in the same county. So he was just saying, he goes, you're lucky to be alive. And I'm like, okay.
I was watching a guy on YouTube go into the Appalachian Mountains and go up into the hollers and stuff like that. And like when he's just doing a YouTube show. He just wants to show people that when you go to play, like he'll go to the most dangerous place in Mexico. He'll go to the most dangerous place in America. He'll go to these places to kind of shed light on them that they're not all bad. But like when he was going up one of the hollers, they were like, a cop stopped him and was like, where are you going? And he was like, well, I wanted to go up there. No, you can go to some of these other ones. Like go down that dirt road. You'll be all right. Don't go down that one.
Not there. You might hear the banjo music going. Yeah. You know, I mean, we can't have that going on.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Speaking of music, man, have you been doing any music lately? Are you still jam or?
So interestingly, my last band I had Draken, which I think was probably the best overall work I did.
Okay.
I knew I wasn't called to do music. I loved music. I still love music. I listen to it every day. And I made myself better songwriter than I should have been.
Okay.
Because I'm very disciplined, you know, like,
Sure.
and I had good people to work with and all that. But I knew I needed to do something else. And, you know, with Draken, I thought that was my best work. So it was just time to leave on a high note. I did that 13 years ago, and I haven't played a live show since.
Yeah, man.
However,
dude, we stopped playing at the same. We stopped playing at the same time. The last time Razor 13 played a show was 13 years ago. Like Facebook
exactly
reminds
13,
me.
That's wild, man. Exactly 13 years ago for me. And we put out our last, you know, collection of work at that point. But I always left it open to do music. And my new podcast, the Higher Calling Wildlife Opening, is me and my buddy Reggie, who was the guitarist in Draken, one of the two guitarists in Draken and songwriter with me. We wrote that. That's going to be a full song. You're getting exclusive. That's going to be a full song that's eventually going to come out. I kind of wanted to be out by this October, but just because of schedules, that probably won't happen. But I'm also working on a documentary for the Dark Outdoors Project.
Oh, cool.
And me and Reggie are scoring that. So
awesome.
Doing some stuff like that. And well, it's not too far removed to have kind of a metal-y sounding score than writing metal music.
No,
so,
you're absolutely right. Mark Ollie, he's an archaeologist from over in the UK. Here's one of his giant thick books. He came on the show and we were talking. He's a musician as well. Most of my connections with everybody I bring on is music, you know, at least in some way, fashion, or form. That's kind of what this whole show's about. It starts out with talking about touring, if you ever toured or if you ever played in a band.
Did that too.
And then we'll have to talk about tour stories here in a minute. And then it moves on to the beyond, and the beyond can be anything. I mean, it can be Bigfoot, aliens, God. It can be anything. We can talk about absolutely anything. And I love leaving that door open because there's, you know, not everybody has any connection to any of the beyond, but it's fun to see sometimes, you know, people got some stuff, people got stories. And so we'll go there at some point. So man, when you're scoring a film, have you guys gotten like deep into it yet?
No. So what happened was my buddy Paul Fuzinski, who's also a musician, he does a podcast and he's doing some writing work with me. He and I put together a documentary called Journey into the Dark Outdoors to kind of, he actually went to the Falcon Monster Festival with me and filmed my release of this project. And he filmed my entire seminar. And then we built documentary out of the seminar.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And we won an award from the Texas Outdoor Media Association for best video for it.
Wow.
And so we decided we want to do something for 2024 that's going to look, that's going to take it to the next level.
Okay.
And I can't really talk about what the subject matter part is because I don't want to give anybody else the idea.
Understood.
But because it's a pretty cool thing that I've been working on. And so me and Reggie I've been slowly just putting together. Matter of fact, he's on my list to call tomorrow for like, you know, some things we're working on. But kind of the vibe is, so me and Reggie bonded many years ago over the love of things like Iced Earth and Dio Era Sabbath. So
I loved Iced Earth, man.
Yeah, absolutely. My top 3 favorite bands of all time. And so it's
John
kind
Schaefer,
of,
dude.
What an incredible
those
writer,
triplets, man. Woo.
What an incredible rhythm guitar player. And
so
we're kind of, think about the Iced Earth horror show CD,
which is one of the best.
Sabbath and anything Freak 13 or Draken ever put out. It's going to be kind of that realm, but also we're going to, I'm definitely going to find someone who can properly play keyboards.
Sure.
And I can write a few little passages, but get someone to do it. But I'm starting to color the ideas in because I'm storyboarded it. I'm about halfway through storyboarding what we want to go film.
Okay.
And it'll be fun, man, because I had the privilege of giving the legendary John Carpenter, Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, everything good in horror in the 80s almost. And, who also scored those films, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I got to present the award to him at Texas Frightmare Weekend about 12, 13 years ago. And when I got to hang out with him for a while before we went up and did the award presentation, and it was like me meeting Santa Claus, you know? Like, I've watched the Halloween and Halloween 2 and all that 500 times in my life.
Of course.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So I told him, I said, I think I inadvertently ripped you off a lot over the years. He goes, so you owe me some money? I said, I never made any money. He goes, dang, you know, he was cool. But I realized a lot of what influence and sounds and atmosphere came into music, especially in Freak 13, was actually John Carpenter's scores in my head.
Oh, okay.
You know, there were little nuances I would listen to years later and go, oh, that was from The Fog, or
Right.
you know, something like that. So it's exciting to do something like this. You know, more of you know, doing the full scoring for a documentary we're working on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be interested to stay in touch with you about the process, because I think, you know, Nine Inch Nails went down that route of scoring everything. They're on every TV show now, every Netflix thing, every movie that him and Atticus Ross are scoring, you know, and it seems to be more
Danzig did a thing called Black Aria, like in the 90s, and it was like a score of something that didn't exist. Basically, it's basically like his take on classical score stuff.
Okay,
and it was pretty interesting, but it was also like, you know, probably wasn't as detailed as like if you know, John Schaefer or, you know, Joe Satriani or someone scored something instead of that punk guttural, but it was cool. But I think a lot of us people in the heavier music art realm like that, because I think one of the number one things that people I know dig about metal, people that are not like a passive metal fan, they're like really into it.
That's right.
Or they love the atmosphere that it creates. They love the feel of it, you know. So that's where I go. It's just what I remember when I saw Metallica when I was in 9th grade in Beaumont, Texas, Third Row Center Stage and Justice for All tour.
Wow,
and
nice.
When they came on with the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly score, you know, that's what they always open with. And
Ecstasy of Gold.
Ecstasy of Gold, yeah. And I remember the lights going down and that happening. It just created, you know, this feel. And so Freak 13, of course, had to do stuff like that. We opened up with the Halloween score a bunch of times, you know, the Friday the 13th score, different stuff like that for our vibe. But you know, it's going to be fun going down that thing, especially like musically coloring in this theory that I have I'm debuting in this documentary. So.
Dude, I'm excited. I can't wait.
I appreciate that.
Like, I want to do that because I love, you know, I sit here and I still mess around with everything. You can see all the guitars and basses in the background. You know, I've got my
bass
stuff.
is in the next room over. So,
okay. So like I'm always still messing around. I still love doing musical scores and, or like just things where I'm messing around. I don't put them out. But like, I would be interested to know how it works. Like, you know, when you watch the guys doing the scoring, like they're in a room watching the show and then they're like playing stuff too. Like, is that how that's going to go?
I'm as interested as you are, because kind of the way I'm doing it right now is just, I'm going to storyboard, and it'll change a lot, but you know, the basic tenet of it. And then we're going to go, this is kind of where we're going to go with it. You know, give me a feel of it. And then as we film and things change, we'll do like a rough cut of the first half, and then we'll sit there and play to it and look to it and adjust it. So it's going to be an exciting process. And I think, you know, music has changed so much. I mean, music itself has not changed much, but the music is now mainly a background theme for people. It's not in people's main, that's why live shows aren't as attended as much and different things. And besides the fact it costs $9,000 to see a decent concert.
I know. I'm pretty sure the last time I saw Metallica was the last time I'm going to see them. And that was 2008 when they played with Down. And it was a great show. It cost me a lot of money to go to it. And then now it's like to sit at NRG Stadium in the cheap seats, it's $100. And I've been in those cheap seats. Exactly. They are really far up there. And I mean, I can watch Metallica on the YouTube.
Exactly. It's the same way. Like, I'm not going to beat the feeling of 89 Metallica. Yeah. So I'm not going to go pay, you know, $250 for like a midway seat, you know?
Yeah, you're right. And the last few times I've seen them anyway, they're just like, they're good. They're professional. They're a great band, but you're right. The first time you've seen them, like I didn't see them till 98. And when they
lost Jason Newsted, they lost the soul of the band.
Yeah.
Live, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Robert's probably technically even a better bass player, but in my opinion, you watch Jason Newsted was the only replacement guy that was more like that band than the band was.
Right. That's true. Like, no, that's a good point. And they let it go, and they let it all go over dumb stuff.
Yeah, you know, Metallica changed my life, really.
Yeah,
it was
me too.
A very life-changing thing to me, Metallica. And by the way, you are a great interviewer.
Well,
I
thank
get
you.
paid to interview people, but you're like, you know how to get stuff out of folks, man. This
Right
is
on.
good.
Well, good. Thank
Um,
you.
I remember being in 9th grade and I've been bullied, subjected, went through all kind of just really insane stuff at school. And I loved Metallica, and I got in this fight, and I wasn't a fighting kid at all.
Sure.
And it was just kind of like I was just done. I wasn't putting up with it anymore. You know, if I get killed, whatever, at least I don't have to deal with this crap anymore.
Right.
Attitude, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And I remember just like the next day going home and just crying because I didn't know why. I was just sick of way things were, and I wanted my life to be better.
Sure.
You know, I wanted my life to be, because I know I had things in me that were good I could do, you know. And I remember flipping on MTV, and here's Lars Ulrich talking, and he said, look, we do what we do, and we don't care what other people think. We have our vision, and if you like it, great. If you don't, and I remember the exact moment sitting in my room going, that's how I'm going to live.
Yeah.
And literally my whole attitude changed. Now, I didn't know it, and you know, at 15 years old, just turned 15, how to articulate that. But my whole outlook changed. And so if I ever get to meet Lars, I'm going to have to thank him for that. But
Yeah.
I've met almost every band I like, but I've never met a member of Metallica except the original member, Dave Mustaine. But
Oh, nice.
but like that was
How was
a
Dave?
moment. You know, it's funny. That's a great story. So me and some friends of mine joined the early. It was a euthanasia tour.
Oh, that was a good tour.
Yeah, it was the early fan club that they had, and which is still going today. And they gave us 2 sets of passes. We had one before the show and after the show. So before the show we go, and like, you know, Marty Friedman's walking around, Dave Ellefson, you know.
Yeah, I've met Dave. That Dave.
Yeah.
I've
That Dave. And Nick Minz, I think, was I don't remember if he's in the first part, but he definitely came for the second round of meeting. And Mustaine's walking around literally doing that snarl look like he does on videos, like he's you know, look, you know, and he's like just signing and just not being rude, just you know, that look.
Hello,
and
me, meet the real me.
It's exactly that look, okay, and you can see it. And then after the show, we go in and Dave doesn't come out, but Ellefson comes out and saying, hey, look, Mustaine's going to be a little bit late. We've got something going on, but you guys want to wait? And we're like, you know, I was like, you know what? Let's ditch the guy. We already got his autograph, whatever. These other guys are pretty cool. And then here comes Mustaine. And he was like the sweetest guy on the planet. Guys, I'm so sorry. And then my buddy was with us. What was up with you in the pre-show thing? You were kind of being a jackass. And he goes, you guys had tickets to that? I said, yeah. He goes, oh man, I thought that was just radio contest winners and stuff. They don't even know Megadeth. And I'm like, wow. So he was all like, you know, he was all cool and gave us hugs and give us a bunch of pics and
nice.
And I got my Rust in Peace, which is the greatest thrash album of all time. Yeah. I got my Rust in Peace, you know, CD cover thing signed by everybody. And
oh, that's so cool.
It was really cool. Now, in that realm, just because we're talking about cool people, there's zero contest for who the greatest I ever met was, and that was Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah, I met him once too.
Yeah, the nicest guy I ever met in my life, and
super nice.
I met him in '94, and they were playing this for a tour called Strange Highways, which was a very underrated. You know, it was in the grunge era, incredible heavy album. I was in the front row at this club called Hurricane Alley, and I kept screaming for this song on the new album, which nobody ever screams for the new stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this crowd was probably 3 times oversold in this club. And brother, it was brutal. And they were like, there was the crowd surfing thing. And like, so this girl in a wheelchair gets almost crushed by crowd surfers.
Oh no.
And Dio gets mad, dude. And he cusses the crowd. And he says, look, we didn't come here for you people to kill yourselves. And the band's like, oh God, we're about to have a riot, you know?
Yeah.
And he comes back and walks right in front of me, I kid you not, and goes, I was going to do a song for my friend down here in the front row. He goes, but some of you might not get it because it has meaning. And I go, oh my God, I think it's mentioned. And he goes, but this is for you, pal. It's called Give Her the Gun. And he played it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. I freaked out. And after the show, I walk up and he's at the bus, 50 years old, at the bus, February, cold, rainy, signing everybody's autograph till they left. Yeah. And I'm there and I walk up and I hand him the thing. He looks at me and goes, that song wasn't in the set tonight.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he goes, it was Hollywood Black on the same album, but I switched it out because I could tell you're a real fan. And we talked. And I said, and I actually wrote a thing about how much Dio meant to me. And I gave it to him. as a thank you for his impact on my life during tough
Right.
times. And at the end, he gives me a hug, love you, buddy. And I'm like, oh, I'm teared up.
Yeah, dude.
Well, me and a friend of mine, same friend, went to, we created a website back in the early 2000s to interview all of our metal heroes.
Okay.
And I got hooked up to go interview Dio in person at the House of Blues in New Orleans, the Magic Tour. So another friend of mine went with me, and we went there, and I sat there, and I just found the cassette tape of this, by the way.
Yeah.
I sat down and with him for an hour in his dressing room interviewing him.
Wow.
And at the very end, I had a few vinyls, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I know you don't mind signing stuff, but I bought him a mega thing. Oh, that's cool, man. That's great. And I said, you'll never remember this, Ronnie, but I was at Hurricane Alley, and I kept screaming for Give Her the Gun. And he stopped me and goes, yeah, it wasn't in the set list that night.
Wow. And he remembered.
Blew me away, bro. So when I meet people who are into my work, whether it was when I was in a band or the people that come up to me that read my hunting and fishing stuff or the Bigfoot stuff or whatever it is, my template is try to always be as good to them as Dio was to me.
Right on. Yeah, dude,
Because
that's awesome.
I know because I know what it means to have someone that you look up to or appreciate their work during a tough time in your life, and then you connect with them and you're like, okay, that was real, So that's kind of my template is right there. I probably fall short, but that's kind of where I go for,
Oh, I think it's wonderful, and I love it. I think, and you know what, there's nothing worse than meeting your hero and then him not be what you thought he was or she.
For sure.
And so I used to love Cradle of Filth a whole bunch, still do.
Yeah.
But I met Danny, and Danny's sober now. Back then, when I met him back then, early 2000s, he wasn't. And he was nice, but it was like, I'm staring down at him because he's 3'2", like Dio. And, and, I was like, hey, Danny, will you sign my Dusk and Her Embrace album? And I was annoying him because he was talking to some girl. And I was he was behind, he was like, how'd this fan get back here? He signed my thing. And they said, off you go. And I was like,
off you go.
Oh, all right, cool. Thanks. And I thought about that later and I was like, man, that guy's kind of a dick. But, he's apparently not that way now, or at least not as bad.
His life's probably changed a lot since he got sober. And
he's been sober for a decade,
Hopefully for him, it stays good because that'll mess you up. And especially when you're in that big touring cycle and you're in the machine, and you're part of that because they'll eat you up, spit you out and, bleed you dry, And when I met Kiss, which was also a
cool
mind-boggling moment, I was backstage on the quote-unquote farewell tour in 2000.
Oh yeah, doing one right now. Or actually, they just wrapped it up, didn't they?
Because my good friend Ted Nugent toured with them that year.
So you buddies? You actually buddies with Ted?
I met him when I was 19.
Dude, that is so cool.
I've been friends with Ted forever. I don't see him a lot anymore because my schedule's even busier than normal, but we'll text each other and I'll see Ted every year or so. And now it used to be 4 or 5 times a year, but I was always real respectful. When he came, I would buy my own ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I just say, hey, can I get hooked up with a pass to come visit? I wasn't wanting to be that guy that had 90 friends outside. Hey, I'm going to bring you to the Ted Nugent show.
Yeah, I need to be on the guest list plus 50.
No, I was never that. I would always bring me and my wife and one friend is what I would always ask for because friends always wanted me. He was always cool about that, respected it. And I hated when people would show up with all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever, But on that tour, he called our mutual buddy and because he couldn't reach me that day. He said, you tell Chester that don't buy tickets for the Kiss tour. We have a big VIP section. You guys go to every show you want, passes, whatever.
Oh, cool.
We got you, brother. We went to 7 of them on that tour because it was a long tour. And we asked, and I never asked for favors, but I said, I want to meet Kiss, man.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to connect and never would work. And the last show he went into was in Lafayette. And I said, I'm not even going to ask. I'm just grateful to get to come,
Yeah.
And I walk in the room. He looks, hey, Chester, you want to do that kissy thing tonight? And and I lit up. He goes, yeah, meet my manager at stage left. Right after I walk off stage, he's going to take you back there. And he took us back. And it was like me being a little bitty boy in 1979, 5 years old. And I saw Kiss when I was 5 years old.
Oh, cool.
And it said Kiss dressing room and whatever outside. And all of a sudden Gene walks out.
Oh, wow.
And they're going on stage. I mean, they're literally 10 minutes from walking and he's in the full get up. Right.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, God of thunder, and
Yeah.
he comes and sits next to me in a lawn chair. And he looks up and he goes, you may have to help me out of this. I've never sat in a lawn chair with the dragon boots before, And I go, whoa, Gene Simmons, my wife's like, calm down. You're going to be okay. I'm like, I will not be okay. This is Kiss, And ironically, Tommy Thayer, who's now doing the guitar gig, was the tour manager of the time.
Okay.
And he comes, hey, you guys Nugent's buddies? He goes, let me get the rest of the guys out. And then here comes Paul. And he's kind of doing stretching and stuff where he goes on stage. And Peter had wandered off. And I remember this funny conversation because I remember Gene goes, where's Ace? He goes, Paul goes, he's painting his nails. If he would pay as much attention to his guitar playing, I remember all this funny stuff.
Wow.
It was funny. And then Ace kind of stumbles out. And then Tommy goes for the picture and Peter wouldn't get in the picture. And remember Tommy Thayer goes, blank him. You don't want him in there anyway. He's being an ass tonight or whatever. And I remember Paul looking at us in the eyes, shaking our hand. And I remember in the picture, I remember that Gene Simmons' hand is on one of my shoulders and Paul Stanley's is on the other.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going, don't faint, don't faint, don't faint, don't faint. Because it was like Kiss was the reason I liked music, growing up.
Yeah.
So that was cool, man. Gene Simmons was Gene Simmons, but Paul Stanley was really sweet. And I got one more if you don't want me sharing because you're a fanboy too.
Please.
This is the other really cool one. And I've met a lot, like John Schaefer, by the way, controversial figure now. Of course, what he did is not nearly as bad as what goes on metal tour buses every night.
No kidding. There was a period of time when I have another YouTube channel. I do this goes on YouTube. Nobody really watches it, but everybody listens to this thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't know why it is. I like watching podcasts, but the listener reviews are way up there when I only get I had Doug Pennick from King's X on and it had there's 2,000 views. I'm like, that's it. It was Doug, but dude, continue.
I met Schaefer a few times and he was always really cool. Very cool. He walked down the road with us in Oklahoma one time looking for something to eat. He was looking for some specific place and we were just talking about the album or whatever. It's Glorious Burden tour, but Nikki Six.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Nikki Six. So I did early VIP thing for band, which is a whole lot cheaper than it is for stuff now. I wouldn't pay for those things now. On the Motley Crue got back together in 2005. And I went back and I used to volunteer for a cat refuge when I was in college, me and my wife. And the Jaguar that was in the Motley Crue Without You video was there. Lady owned it. She had pictures she showed me of Tommy Lee playing his drumsticks at the Houston Summit backstage and the cat swiping at him and the video shoot and all that. So I brought a picture of that cat.
Yeah.
And I walk in and I'm walking in the room and the guys are kind of standing there. There's a few people ahead of me and I'm holding it up like this. And Tommy Lee goes, huh? And Nikki goes, no way. And they call me over to him. And he goes, is that the cat that was in the video? I said, yeah. He goes, what's his name? I said, Czar. He goes, oh, and I told him the story.
Yeah.
Thought it was super cool or whatever. And, they got a picture or whatever. And Tommy Lee acted like I expected him to like a 4-year-old.
Right.
He was great. He was great. He was just this ball of energy. He's really like that. You know what I mean? He was really nice and everything. Mick was quiet. Vince was quiet. They're both cordial. But I told Nikki, I said, hey, man, look, there was a particular period. I learned a lot about standing up myself by just how you pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. I said, I never had an addiction problem, but I went through a lot of stuff that drugged me into a dark place. And I saw you come out of that. And you were always very positive about people going for what they want no matter their background. And I appreciate that. So thank you. So, yeah, man, thank you. They ask for a picture, whatever, get a picture. I don't want to bug the guys. I walk off. So I walk about 20 feet out of this room and I close this door. And as I'm closing the door shoots right open and a hand grabs my shoulder. It's Nikki Six.
Okay.
And I turn around and he turns around and he goes, hey, man, look, I want to thank you for what you told me. He goes, when I have dark days, stories like that will keep me going.
Awesome.
So thank you for sharing that with me, brother. That means a lot. I love you, man. I just want to tell you thank you for making my day. And he gave me a big hug.
That's awesome, dude. That's so cool.
And that was mind blowing. Now, here's the cool part. I was in the third row that night and I caught Six's pick too. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, fanboy hour is over.
Now I got to talk about Nikki Six because I met him once myself, but it was at a book signing. He was doing the Heroin Diaries book signing. He was at the Barnes and Noble off of Kirby Drive.
Yep.
And I had long red hair still. I think I was still playing in Razor 13. I was doing, it was during the bandana years. Like the bandana had come back, everyone was
Yeah, I
wearing
still
one
wear
in
the
their
bandana
pocket.
all the time.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
signature.
There it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. I saw the bandana in your back pocket,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards. And we went, and he was super nice. He said, "Hey buddy." I mean, it was quick, he's signing millions of autographs all day.
Sure.
Shook my hand, looked me right in the eye. Like,
Well,
it was
I'm a
super
pretty good
nice.
reader of people who are sincere with
Yeah.
stuff. And that was it was a sincere deal. So that was always good fuel for me, and to inspires me, to want to make others, help them maybe get out of their problems, stuff like that,
Absolutely. So we've talked about a lot of cool things, and I'm going to try to go. I didn't take as many notes as I wanted. I've got some cool movies that I need to look at, or a series like Murder Mountain. I got to check that thing out,
brother.
So I'm going to move my camera just because you said folk monster. Can you see it? Oh, you can probably.
Yeah, there we go. There's the Legend of Boggy Creek.
Legend of Boggy Creek right there, man. That's
baby.
Like, I saw that in 1980 something or other.
Well, there's my this is Falcon Monster Festival poster I spoke at. I got all the rest of the speakers to sign it for me while I was there. Just remember that. Whoa, there we go.
Dude, that is so cool.
Yeah,
so I've been obsessed with that movie. I mean, it was rated G, so you go into like Super Video or
man,
Blockbuster at some point and get it, and it scared the crud out of this young man. Like when I was let's get that a little bit better. Yeah, when I was younger, I still remember the sound. And he's watched the little kid running across the field with the music.
So that movie was a huge impact.
Yeah.
My dad saw it at the drive-in when I was like 3 or 4.
Nice. And
told me about it. And I was already in the Bigfoot thing because he had a copy of Argosy magazine that had the Patterson Gimlin stuff in it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I came out of like the birth canal loving nature. So a natural mystery to me was like, oh wow, this is even cooler, like a monster type thing in nature.
Yeah.
That was like a mind blower. And this is before I was, internet or anything, but I was getting surgery, a hernia surgery, when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they had cable at the hospital.
Oh, cool.
And about 45 minutes before they wheeled me in, The Legend of Boggy Creek come on. And I got to watch like half of it. And I was like, and then later on getting it on VHS and all that was really cool. And then later on, I got to know Smokey Crabtree, and the Crabtree family was a big part of that.
Oh, cool.
Got to go down to Boggy Creek with Smokey.
Hey, Johnny Crabtree.
Travis Crabtree.
Travis, that's it. That's it.
You have Lyle on. Ask Lyle about singing that song. Say, Chester said, tell you about singing Hey Travis Crabtree.
I will.
He did a good version of that horrible song. It was amazing.
Okay.
But, it's funny because Lyle and I both spoke at the Falcon Monster Festival in Falk this year.
That's super rad.
It was at the middle school, and they had like a bunch of the classes, old pictures, and there's Travis Crabtree's class picture on the wall.
Wow.
Yeah, that's and so that was cool. But that was a big deal to me too, man. And it got me into that topic and being interested in it or whatever. And I
mean, then Boggy Creek 2 and then Boggy Creek 3, and like and I kept, as a young child watching these things, even though they went away from that like documentary type thing that the first one was. I mean, Boggy Creek 2, where they could track it by like radar or whatever, and it was getting turned into more of a horror film. That scared the crud out of me.
They just put a really remastered version of that out on Blu-ray with a bunch of exclusive artwork.
It was so scary. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense one, but I kept going back to the original. Like it was always the documentary type thing. In all honesty, it was a quasi documentary, but about 85% of that really happened stuff.
Yeah,
accounts. So that was, and the other thing he did great, Charles Pierce, who made that, was The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and which was about the Phantom Killer of Texarkana. It was done the same way Legend of Boggy Creek was, essentially.
Okay.
And a little more drama to it. And that had a huge, matter of fact, if you go listen to the Dark Outdoors archives, this is just a guess for you, need to interview Pamela Pierce Barcelo.
Okay.
She owns the Legend of Boggy Creek film rights. She is Charles Pierce's daughter. And I can get you hooked up with her. Lyle hooked me up with her, and she owns that. And it's a great interview about all that. She did one with me about Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Okay. Dude, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, that stuff is really cool. And, what got me into doing some investigative journalist Bigfoot research was investigating a report and hearing the exact sound from the Legend of Boggy Creek intro
Oh,
in the woods with two other guys. And it wasn't like one off, it was multiple calls, and it was really wild. And that let me know that there was something out there that I needed to investigate as a journalist. And that was kind
yeah,
of the way I went into that. I don't really do Bigfoot media anymore.
sure.
I have contributed all I can contribute to that topic,
Sure.
is the way I look at it. And there's something out there for sure. I have no doubt. What it is, I don't know.
Sure.
But it's a fascinating topic, and I think the films and stuff are even a lot more fun than the real thing.
I have from in Katy, Texas, growing up, Katy Elementary, Katy Junior High, Katy High School. I'm that kind of kid. And I would videotape with the big VHS cameras, out in the middle of the woods, because you'd hear the calls, and they were all over the place. And then there was a migration. And this is just the thing. I don't know.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
as Katy got built up and the woods started disappearing, they went south. And then you started hearing reports of these creatures like getting into trash cans, and because they were running out of room, and they were getting forced into something. So they were I don't know. I saw stuff growing up in Katy, but I mostly heard them, and you could hear the knocks, and you would hear the screaming thing, and you're like,
yeah, I didn't have any encounters when I was a kid.
Okay.
But I did in my early 20s.
Okay.
I had stuff going on, and then that led me to do some research, and then it was all kind of crazy stuff that happened over the years doing the research. So I find it really interesting that you were doing that stuff when you were a kid,
I mean, I liked sneaking out of the house. That was the best thing. Parents went to sleep, jumped out of the window, went into the woods, and then I started taking friends out there because they didn't believe me. I was like, I took if you ever had 3 or more people, not a lot happened because you're making too much noise.
You're just right.
Out there doing stuff. But if it was 3 or 2, stuff happened all the time. And I didn't know.
Like that's what tells me I'm a journalist. That's what I get paid to do for a living for the last 30 years. So I look for patterns.
Sure.
It's like an investigator. You look for something that connects to something else. And, if I'm trying to get a really good photo of a very elusive white-tailed deer, I'm not going to bring 4 cameramen and 3 buddies and sit in the blind.
Right.
I'm going to bring me.
That's right.
That's going to be it, So,
and it gets scary out there by yourself, man, in the dark. You know what I mean? It
does. The dark,
don't know what's around the corner.
If you listen to my Dark Outdoors podcast, and you hear these nut jobs in the woods, you get really freaked out,
Right.
But so that's always been a very intriguing topic, the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch thing. And I think to me, the most interesting thing about it has been some of the footprint dermal ridging evidence and the vocalizations. That stuff is, this is about far as I'm going to go on the Bigfoot rabbit hole.
Sure.
But Patterson Gimlin film is real. I have absolutely no doubts about that. I know Bob Gimlin personally. He came to my conference and spoke. I spent 4 or 5 days with him. I've been to California and hung out with him at Bluff Creek.
Wow.
And when we brought him here, a guy I knew did some enhancements of the film that he had never seen, because Bob did one conference in Russia in the 70s, one thing in the early 80s, and disappeared until the early 2000s. And he didn't do any of this stuff because he got, his wife lost her job and stuff because of all this, went through a lot of crap. Right. And this guy I knew showed him enhancements where you could see mucus in the creature's eye and muscle tears and stuff. And Bob started tearing up in front of us.
Wow.
In a hotel room with nobody else there but a few of us.
Yeah.
I said, "What's going on, buddy?" Well, Roger Patterson was the guy who filmed it, and Bob Gimlin was there with him. Roger died in 1971. People called him a lunatic, etc. He said if Roger would have seen this, he would have died in peace. He would have felt validated. So I'm like, that's real.
Yeah.
And the other thing I go is, if it's fake, how come no one's done a better one since 1967?
Right. That's a good point. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like, so there's
all of
stuff
these
out there.
Did you see the news? This was a couple weeks ago, but they were talking about Bigfoot on the news, and like there's Texas footage of one like sleeping on the ground or something.
There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a guy named Thinker Thunker on YouTube that does really cool, very interesting analysis. So it's it's an interesting topic. So here's what my Bigfoot stuff is relegated to now.
Okay.
We got a lot of kids love this stuff. A lot of little Chesters and, running around the wood, a lot of little Ryans running around out there that read this stuff, especially since all this multimedia out there on it, right?
Right, absolutely.
So we have a program called Wild Wishes that me and my wife do.
Okay.
And we grant wildlife encounters if kids have a critical illness, loss of a parent or a sibling. We've even worked.
Hey everybody, editing room Ryan here. I just wanted to say that Chester's internet's about to get a little sketchy during this interview. I've cut out a bunch of it, but I've left some of it being a little glitchy in there just because you can still kind of understand what he's saying, and it's part of the story that he's telling. So if you start seeing things get chopped up, that's why. It's still a great listen to the end. So please, continue, and thanks, and I love you all. And back to the show. So your program that you do this for is called Wild Wishes.
Yeah, Wild Wishes. Yeah.
Okay, and you only do about one a year, but that's super cool. So is there a website?
No, we only do one. Somebody might ask for a Bigfoot thing once a year.
Once, okay.
We do dozens. We have granted 217 encounters to kids in the last.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. That's so great. Is there a website I can go to, or?
Yeah, you can go to. It's out of our facility, the Kingdom Zoo Wildlife Center.
Okay.
So you can go to kingdomzoo.com.
Perfect. Kingdomzoo.com. Links in description, everybody.
Yeah.
So some of the things I wanted to talk about, and I'll always go back to Bigfoot, so I have to pull myself off of this topic as well.
It's all good.
I mean, it's like you just gotta okay, stop. Let's go. Let's talk about something else, because I'll talk about Bigfoot forever. So out of touring, because when I met Dave Elfson, he was on tour. We were doing this rock and roll fantasy camp thing. So it was King's X and Extreme. We were playing all the, I was bass tech. So I'm nobody. I just hung out. I just did Doug's bass. But we went all around the country with VH1's rock and roll fantasy camp, and everything they did in the beginning was have all of these guys like Dave came out and played, and you got to pay money, come in and play on stage with your favorite musician. Sure.
Yeah.
Dave was so super nice to me, man. He was just,
that's awesome.
And Doug Pennant came on the show from King's X, and I said, I heard Dave's in a little bit of trouble. He goes, he's not in any trouble. That was, and talked about his little thing, cause he's got the insider scoop. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Sorry, my bad. But I've been fortunate enough after working with King's X, touring the United States, touring Canada and Europe with these guys, that I was able to run into a lot of fun and awesome musicians. What's one tour story out of all your touring that sticks out to you, or maybe like a cool guy you ran into?
Freak 13 did very limited engagement. We did like a tour of the Midwest. We would do shoots out toward New Orleans, like New Orleans, and we went into Florida. Then we did a couple of shows out in California. So with Freak 13, we got to play the Whiskey, headline the Whiskey on Friday the 13th.
Whoa!
And we were playing. Yeah, so Freak 13 is playing the Whiskey on Friday the 13th because we are in Los Angeles to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Friday the 13th. We were the band at this horror convention that was the official 25th anniversary of Friday the 13th got to
that's so cool.
To actually represent the band. And our manager at the time, we were playing the Musicians Institute, which we were not qualified to play. Some of the guys that play there, we were like the punk rock band of that thing, but we played the Whiskey. Got to headline. It was surreal walking up to the Whiskey and seeing Freak 13 tonight on the.
Yeah, that's
and
so cool.
So we had Ari Lehman, who played Jason in the first movie as the drowning boy, and the guy who jumped out of the water, who's a musician.
The first Jason, isn't he in a band called The First Jason?
Yeah,
or something?
So we did a tour with them actually.
Okay.
But this is the first time we ever played with Ari at that time. I hadn't talked to him in years, but he plays keyboards, very talented musician. And our song Crystal Lake that I wrote out 13 got us there. That's the song that got us out and on tour, got us that gig. And he come and played with us.
Dude, that's so cool.
And then Lar Park Lincoln, who was Tina in Friday 7, and Lar rented a limo, brought the guy that played Jason in part 2, Warrington Gillette. And I'm looking at this crowd and I'm going, the girl from Friday 7 is sitting there singing our lyrics.
Wow.
I got Jason on one side of me and I'm looking at another in the audience, and I'm playing where Nikki Sixx started his career.
Wow.
Where Slash and Axl started their careers, where freaking Wasp started their career. We played a Wasp cover that night.
Oh, cool. Nice.
And it's Sleeping in the Fire. And that was just the moment right there. Just that all those things kind of came together in that one night. You know what I mean? So that was a special time. And that whole convention was awesome too. So we had a good time getting to meet everybody that was in those films and being one of the 2 bands in the country that were asked to play there. The other was called Order of the Fly. They did the Musicians Institute show with us, and they were great.
Awesome, man. That's a great story. I love it. I never got to. Well, I didn't play the whiskey. King's X played the whiskey, and I've been on the stage.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well,
here's your bass. All right.
Yeah. Ironically, I played a 12-string at the Musicians Institute show. So
they're monsters. Was it a Hamer or what was it?
No, I had an endorsement deal with a custom shop called October Guitars.
Okay.
And they built it for me. And I still have it. And they built me a Voorhees bass. So they took basically a P bass body and put like this Peter Jason thing on it.
That's so cool.
You know, all this stuff on it. And it was called the Voorhees. And
that's awesome.
We got to do that stuff on tour. Another funny thing about that particular show is there's a picture of me that's on the internet. It's Google Freak 13 whiskey or horror. It's pictures me and Raven who sang for the band. And you see me wearing this shirt. It's Amy Steele from Friday the 13th Part 2, where she has the pitchfork like holding against Jason. When I was in like 3rd grade, I was in love with Amy Steele. Like that was my girl. Like I remember kids on the playground like Madonna had come out. Oh, Madonna says, no, it's like Amy Steele. Who's that? The chick with the pitchfork.
Yeah.
I told her that story, and she thought that was the greatest thing ever. You know,
it is the greatest thing ever.
And so we did another show at Screamfest in Orlando 2 years later, and she was there, and I had actually lost that shirt somewhere on tour. And I invited her out to see us that night, and she came in at the sound check. She goes, "Hey, Chester, sorry, I got to leave the convention or whatever." She had something going on that night. She goes, "But I got you covered. I found an XL. Here's you a new shirt." So she bought me a shirt. Yeah, I felt like a little kid in puppy love, you know.
Right. So. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. That's so cool, dude. So I'm moving on towards the end of the show. Let's go beyond. We already kind of went beyond with Bigfoot, but like this is normally where I'll ask the guests, like, do you know Bigfoot? Have you seen a ghost? Have you ever seen a UFO? Everybody tells me they don't know Bigfoot. I'm like, okay. So
I've never personally met him and shook his hand. I'll say that.
Okay, me neither. Have you ever seen a ghost or a UFO?
You know, it's an interesting topic. So my worldview is I'm a follower of Christ.
Right.
So obviously, if I believe that there was someone born of a virgin that rose from the dead, the supernatural is real.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
That's got to be in my realm. And it's funny. I meet a lot of people who are non-Christians who believe more in the supernatural. But But so I definitely believe that there is, a lot of stuff out there, and that's like a whole other rabbit hole.
Sure.
A ghost thing. I can't say I've ever seen something what somebody would call a ghost. I've had some weird sounds and stuff I've heard before, but who knows? Never seen that. I have seen lights in the sky. I have seen something that was probably in the realm of a UFO. Sure. And ironically, it was on a Bigfoot expedition.
Of course it was.
And I used to make fun of people who'd be like, I was a UFO hunting, Bigfoot hunting. I saw a UFO. And I'm like, I was this other guy, and it was the triad shaped thing, right?
Right.
It was huge. And I went, great. If Men in Black show up, I'm quitting this whole thing right now. I'm done.
We're done.
But But yeah, so supernatural is an important part of my life. I believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that's part of what we do for kids, bring the love of Christ to them through wildlife encounters. And
I love it.
And kind of that's what empowers me to do what I want to do is help those kiddos, because I was in a dark place, and he reached out to me in a dark place in my life, and that's my love, that's my testimony. And of course, I'm not probably a lot of folks in the average American church would send out to evangelize the gospel, but I just tell people, look, I'm just a Jesus follower, and yes, I believe in the supernatural. Yes, I believe in the supernatural, and I did see the one thing like that, and I'm trying to think of any other weird stuff like that. I saw some weird eyes. Me and my dad when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah. So me and my dad were rabbit hunting. This must have been, I was 11, maybe 12 tops, in Newton County. We're walking in the river bottom of my aunt's property, where there was a lot of Bigfoot action. I found out later on.
Right.
And we see these sets of red eyes, and there are probably 5 or 6 sets.
Oh, wow.
And we're in pretty thick woods. And I knew what cattle look like when you shine eyes. My aunt had cattle in the pasture. I knew what deer look like and different things. And we're in a pretty thick, you can't see probably more than 30 yards where we're at. And if I shine the lights that we had on a deer at 50 yards, you'd see the deer.
Right.
And there's nothing behind these eyes.
Whoa.
And I bet we saw they were moving 5 or 6 sets of them. We got closer, and these things probably got whatever this thing was, probably got within 10 yards of us.
Oh,
then
wow.
My dad decided to hightail it, and I was glad he did, because I was ready to run my little carcass out of the woods. That always just mystified us. It was literally it wasn't spider eyes. They were like eyes.
Right.
And they were set apart like this, moving together.
Whoa.
But there are at least 5 or 6, before my dad, we talked about it again, and we read there's at least 5 or 6 of whatever this was in this spot, moving around, and they were moving up and down, and they were moving side to side, and they were like uniform. So that was one of probably the weirdest stuff that I ever had happen like that. So
that's crazy. I was just watching my buddy Brandon Thomas. He runs a podcast called Expanding Reality. They talk about all kinds of stuff, but one of his guests is doing a documentary, or has done one, on the Dogman, Bigfoot, and like how like they might, if you're gonna get supernatural with it, they get real supernatural where they're like shapeshifters, and that's why you can't ever see them, and like they turn into, like, they can just make you avoid them, but like they talk about them having red eyes. It's creepy.
That's interesting. So I don't know what it was, but I kind of go back to Predator. Okay, a lot of things circle back to Predator. If it bleeds, we can kill it.
That's right.
Didn't see we could shoot, but I was tempted to take my little 410 because this thing is getting close. I'm like, well, I go right between both of them. He'd be a blind-eyed thing, whatever he is,
That's right. When I was younger, I had a little 410, the little collapse, the stock collapse. You put the one shell in. Yeah,
that's what mine was.
Exactly
the same thing. Killed my first rabbit with it, and hunted and stuff like that. But that was And I've had things happen where like that are more on the positive side of the supernatural, where like get an impression about someone. In charismatic Christian circles, we call this a word of knowledge about a struggle that someone's having, and then you say it, and they look at you like, "How did you know?" Someone you don't even know, and then you get to talk with them and kind of release them from problems. So I've had that stuff too, but I try to keep my feet on the ground, but my eyes looking to the sky too. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, that's somebody I had on the podcast the other day said the exact same thing. Like, oh, it was Gabe from American Fangs. He was on the show, and I was like, I asked this question. He was like, man, we always are staring at our phones, because you got to try to keep an eye in the sky.
There you go, brother.
I love it.
There you go.
Dude, Chester, it's been so great having you on the show. And thank you for being so nice and awesome to come on and talk with. And man. I hope you'll come on again, and we can talk. It's an honor
and privilege to be on your show. You have a gift for conversation, and I thank you for the opportunity to talk about all this wild, crazy, and fun stuff. And that's the thing, I guess, all the things we talked about for the most part are things that can be fun and a positive in life.
Absolutely.
And I try to keep that perspective on it, man. And whether it's rock and roll, whether it's cryptozoology, and if you can do it and it puts a smile on your face or somebody else's face, that's a win.
That's right, dude. I was in San Angelo, Texas the other day, and I went to the Dead Horse, and I was sitting at the bar, and I looked down, and there's Lyle's face on the bar. Like
I saw a picture someone had of a bar, something like the little icon with the hat and everything.
Yeah. So I took a picture of it, and I was like, I think I found you at the Dead Horse in San Angelo. Sent it to him.
Today I tipped my hat, but usually I would tip my bandana to Lyle because we did a thing along with Shelly Montana, who's a Bigfoot researcher. We did a little mini conference for 10 kids in our Wild Wish program.
Oh, right on.
We did it in a hotel room just for them. We did it for about 6 or 7 hours, give them the full spectrum of seminars.
That's
and then we took them into Boggy Creek. And so they got to go on Boggy Creek at night with thermal imaging and the whole bit. And so cool. Lyle and Shelly both were heroes for taking time. He always told me, if I can ever help one of your kids into that stuff, I'll do it. So Lyle's a good man. And I'll either see him at conferences or like I ran into him at the Misfits Alice Cooper show.
Oh, so. Yeah. Nice. Dude, that's so cool. Yeah, man. Well, brother, I appreciate it. It's good to catch up after however many, 13, 14, 15 years, it's been a while.
Well, 13 guys and the Razor 13 guys have got to kind of connect sometimes, right?
Dude, we got to, man. So you guys were Freak 13, we were Razor 13, and then Wednesday 13 was out there getting all popular.
Yeah, Wednesday stole our stuff. I'm
telling you.
No, I actually love Wednesday 13, especially his early stuff.
Yeah, man, me too. All right, brother. Go have yourself a great evening. Thank you so much for coming on. Everybody,
take care, buddy.
Thanks, man. You too. Everybody, this has been Chester Moore. This is the 13. I've been your host, Ryan 13. We'll see you all again on the next one.